Welcome to Define Play, where I ask fascinating people what play means to them. My name is Michael Mirza, and my guest today is David Hardin. David is a business consultant and exit advisor, the co-founder of fintech company Lendrose, and a TACFIT personal trainer. David also juggles multiple extreme sports as an Arc'teryx athlete and trainer, including ice climbing and surfing. He's been a friend to me for more than a decade, and I've admired watching him continuously living life with infectious energy and a natural drive to coach and care for others. I'm ready to learn and be inspired. I hope you are too. So let's dive in. So, David, to me, you are the perfect embodiment of work hard, play hard. People toss that phrase around a lot, but you to the max on both sides, work hard, play hard. Love that about you. I would love to explore both sides of that of you, starting with the play hard side. Okay. So,
my favorite.
Yes, of course, everyone's favorite. So, I know that your primary sports currently, ice climbing, surfing, right? Both of these feel like they are seasonal in a way. Talk to me about the seasons of play. What are you doing in different seasons and different times of the year?
Right on. First off, thank you. I appreciate this.
Yeah.
I try to find something every season. You know, it just sometimes doesn't work out. Ice climbing, start with that. Obviously, that's very seasonal, right? You know, I got to go up to the UP, Michigan, or we just at Starved Rock a couple weeks ago. And so wintertime here in Chicago, there's not much to do. And for 15, 20 years, I refuse to accept that. I refuse to be one of the ones that just sits in a bar all the time. I'm like, nah, I got to adventure. And so, you know, usually I'm traveling to go somewhere, but here, the ice climbing, being able to go do that, get on some frozen waterfalls. It's if you've never seen it, it's really cool.
Is that
it's
like
cool.
the pictured rock?
Yep. We go to Pictured Rocks. You know, 60-foot frozen waterfalls, you know, 40 feet diameter, and you're climbing up it. It's pretty wicked.
Dude, I saw the video of that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
The video of you doing that on your Instagram with just the raw audio of the wind.
Oh, yeah, the 360 cam.
And seeing the Lake Superior behind you, it blew me away.
I have one of those as my pin stories because it's such a cool video because you could see the raw power.
Yeah.
Right. That was Lake Superior. And those were 6 to 8 foot waves crashing with, you know, 50-mile-per-hour winds as we're climbing the ice, the frozen waterfall on that. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I mean, I got to imagine that has to be one of the most alive feelings you could ever experience.
Yeah. And I try to share that, you know, and one thing maybe we'll talk about at some point, but I have just as much passion for doing the sport, doing the activity. I actually think I have more passion with bringing others and watching them experience it. Right? So like ice climbing, for example, I've introduced 166 or 167 people to ice climbing for the first time. Yeah, it's something I want to share. And so, you know, I'll lead one of my trips, I'll guide one of the trips, and I'll get a handful of climbs in, but I'm enjoying watching everybody else experience and seeing that smile on their face, right? I wish I could say the same for surfing in the wintertime. Not many people want to do it. A lot of people say they want to do it.
I'm scared to surf in the summer. You're surfing in the winter.
But when it comes to it, surf here in Lake Michigan typically is a winter sport. Every once in a while, we get lucky with some, you know, a couple waves in June and September, but mainly it's wintertime. You know, and so it's grown for sure over the last couple of years. We got a WhatsApp chat, and there's a couple hundred people on there. But if it's less than 50 degrees outside, that group of a couple hundred maybe goes down to like 50. And then if it's below 30 degrees, that group of 50 maybe goes down to like 20, you know, and then, you know, you have a couple screws loose to get out in that, you know, freezing cold water. You know, I think the coldest I've ever been was Kirk and I were surfing 57th Street Beach over by the museum campus, and our Museum of Science and Industry. And it was like 50-mile-per-hour winds. And we surf and it gets dark out and you're wearing a 6.5 millimeter wetsuit and the wind's blowing and there's nowhere to trying to take off our wetsuit. It sucks. But you're catching great waves and you don't realize that there's actually great waves on the Great Lakes. You know, and so when we show pictures, you know, when I show pictures of people like, no way, that looks like Hawaii. You're like, no, that's actually Sheboygan or Whiting, you know.
Man, doing that. I mean, let me just recap what I just heard. You're talking winter surfing at night in Lake Michigan. And I mean, all of that combined is just incredibly extreme. And doing it in Chicago, in the city limits of Chicago.
Yes. That's what we're trying to do, is more fun stuff in the city.
Yeah.
And then I got to travel everywhere for everything else. We go to Puerto Rico every November. We go to all, we went to Hawaii 2 years in a row and had, surfing Hanalei Bay, and just next thing you know, 9 hours went by.
Yeah.
You're surfing because it's so warm and it's so nice out, and Jess is just chilling on the beach reading a book, and to be able to just do that. Yeah. So I dive as well, so all the diving, just as long as I'm doing something.
Yeah.
I'm 43 years old and I'm taking up skateboarding.
Amazing.
I was never a skateboarder. I was a baseball and football player, in track and field, and those board sports just weren't my focus. And so every single time that I skateboard or even get on my one wheel, I notice my surfing improves. And so now it's like, all right, I want to get on a skateboard. I don't care about doing kick flips and just, I want to get in the bowl and just carve, because that's surfing on land, basically.
Very cool.
So yeah, the more and more I can just have fun and act like a kid and just do things that get me going, I don't want to sit in an office all day. I don't want to sit at a bar and just drink every weekend. Like, I want to go do things, and have more and more adventures.
I love it. It's incredible. And I'm really struck by the number of people that you said you gather to do some of these climbing. Did you say 160 new people?
Yeah, like 166, 167 last time I checked.
I know that you partner with Arc'teryx as well, and that's probably part of this program, but how are you finding these people? What's the invitation that you're extending to someone?
It's a mix. A lot of referral based. People will see my posts. Friends will see my posts. Be like, I'd love to do that one time. Like a couple of my surf buddies, Florida, Georgia, California. Wow. They've always seen me doing this, and finally they're like, okay, I'm ready to do it.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool to have, a Florida and a California guy come up to the UP, freezing cold, climbing frozen waterfalls, when these are guys I'm usually surfing in warm weather with.
Yeah.
So a lot of that with Arc'teryx, we'll do like a quarterly event to where I'm doing some sort of event at the store just to bring people and educate them that there's more to do in the Chicagoland area besides go to the bar and drink.
Yeah, right.
And so it's a mix of those things. And then, any of the rock climbers that I hang out with, I'll always ask them like, hey, have you ever considered ice climbing? And usually the answer is no. Usually the answer is, yeah, that seems too hard. And my response always is, it's actually quite beginner friendly.
Yeah.
Especially if you're using someone like a guide like me to show you how to do it. And my trips are all inclusive as well. Like I set up everything. You just show up. Like when I say all inclusive, like I cook all the meals, I prep everything, I get the house, I get everything, and all you do is just show up and climb. And we teach you how to climb.
Incredible.
So it's a lot of fun, and I also tell people, I don't know if you remember Steve Brown, but he's mid-60s.
Okay.
He's a bigger guy. He's like 6'4", 6'5". He's maybe like 250 stocking. He ice climbs.
Yeah.
He's been on like 3 trips with me.
Cool.
So when people are like, oh, you got to be in great shape, you got to be this massive athlete, I'm like, you don't. And then me, I do a good job of bringing community together. So I have parties at my house, and so like that's another passion of mine.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, that's so cool. So people are seeing what you're doing, they're seeking you out, but you're making that invitation. Yeah. Have you considered this? And
very much so.
I got to imagine some folks have thought ice climbing, that seems totally unattainable. Yeah. It's something that you have to travel to the Arctic to do. And like, no, this is actually, we can do this in the Midwest. Yeah. We can do this in Michigan, and it's really cool. So on the seasonal idea, going back to that a little bit, I love that you are keeping yourself busy year round. You're always finding something that energizes you and really inviting people along with you. Do different seasons also come with different mindsets for you as the activities change? Does the mindset change as well?
Yes, absolutely. The more extreme, the more cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have that mindset. You got to have that. The older I get, the more I have this work versus reward ratio.
Okay.
So for example, I have not surfed the lakes under 20 degrees air temp in a couple of years.
Wow.
Because if I'm going to freeze my balls off, if I'm going to get that cold, there better be some decent waves, right? But typically in the last couple of years, it's been very mushy. So when you look at the waves, you're like, If I didn't have access to waves like I do, I'd be out there in a heartbeat.
Okay.
But I spend an entire month in Puerto Rico every November. I'm heading out to California tomorrow, and I'm going for business, but then I usually get to get a couple surf sessions in, right? So I have access to warmer weather waves. But yeah, you got to get in this mindset of, are you willing to do the hard thing to have fun? I don't know if you ever heard of the term type 2 fun.
No.
Okay, type 2 fun. I even thought about getting the tattoo. It says type 2, but it's also like people think like diabetic or something.
Oh, it's like a blood type. No, this is my fun type. Okay.
Type 2 fun, the definition of is while you're doing it, and ideally you're with people. You can do it by yourself, but while you're in the moment, you're like, oh my gosh, this is hard. Why did I sign up for this? This sucks. This is brutal. You're trekking through the mountains and it's wind gusts and it's difficult. But when you look back on that, you're like, oh my gosh, that was such a great day, or that was such a great time, right? You bond with your friends who you're with. You bond over the difficulties that you're able to achieve together, right? And so there's a lot more type 2 fun in the wintertime versus other, just strictly because weather, But
wait, this fun framework system is really intriguing to me. How many other types are there?
I have no idea. I really know. Type 1, I think, is just
I've got my
fun.
type. That's all I need to know.
Exactly, right?
No, and that gives me an idea of just thinking about how there's different frameworks. And we talk about personality types, and there's the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs and the Strengths Finder, and there's different types. And, personality traits can be somewhat nature and nurture. They can be fluid as well. But a fun type is interesting because you have a little more autonomy to lean in and choose.
Yeah.
So long as you can cultivate that mindset to say, okay, there is a relationship here between work and play.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to work, the play is enhanced.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'll tell you a real quick story. I mentioned my buddy Kirk. First time he came ice climbing with us. We were climbing only on Friday and Saturday. And Friday, the conditions were miserable. On the trail, if you stepped 6 inches off the trail, you were going down hip in snow. The snow was so deep and fresh powder. The winds were blowing like crazy. It was miserable. We had, I think, a 3-mile hike just to get to the climbs. So by the time we get there, everyone's pretty miserable. Like, this sucks. The climbing was great, but again, it was a tough day. So, and Kirk, I apologize for calling you out, but it's a good story. That night, he's like, he goes, I don't think I'm going to go tomorrow. I think I'm just going to chill at the house and relax. And I'm like, no, man, trust me. Yeah, today was not the typical day. It's usually not that hard. Just come on, trust me. Go with us the next day. The weather's supposed to be better. Wake up, he was still, I don't know. I was able to convince him to go. Yeah. And the weather was great. And we had a great time, and he loved it to where he could pretty much come back every year now. Yeah. Right? So like, you have to get in that mindset. And if you don't have somebody to help you get in that mindset, he might have missed out. Yeah. Right? And again, he is a mainstay. He's one of my regulars on this trip now. He enjoys it so much. And not only that, my trips, it's 50% the adventure of what we're doing, and it's 50% hanging out with the community. Yeah. Right? Hanging out at the house and playing board games and getting to know each other and staying up till 2 a.m., right? As long as you could bring your adventure, because I know adventure junkies. I wouldn't consider myself an adventure junkie. Okay. Like, I'm an adventure chaser for sure. Interesting. But like, I don't have this addiction, this shake, like, oh my gosh, I need to get out there. I have that to where I need to go take a trip and relax from work, but I don't need to go taking crazy risks. Okay. I want to spend time with community. If you were to ask me, hey, you want to go ice climbing by yourself today? Sure. You want to go ahead and do it tomorrow for the next couple of days? I'd rather do it with people. Yeah. So there's a mix of that there, but I think you have to lean on a community to get out of your comfort zone. Yeah, absolutely. Are there any other instances you can think of where someone in the community, you've had an opportunity to show them something new or help them get familiar with gear in a new way, conquer some kind of fear, and make a new core memory? Surfing Lake Michigan, it really is that one there. You get a lot of people here in the city who have never surfed. It's one thing when you have somebody who moves from California to Chicago for work, and they know how to surf. They're used to saltwater versus freshwater, but it's not that hard of a transition. we have a lot of people that just never surfed before.
Yeah.
You know, and they've always seen it. And there's this romanticism about surfing. You know, whenever I see like a beer commercial and you see people surfing a wave or rock climbing, and I usually look at those commercials, I'm like, first off, it's pretty cool that I do all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but it's pretty awesome.
Like, wait, I actually do that.
Yeah,
Nobody
it's, you know, goal achieved. But a lot of people see that and they say, oh, I wish that could be me.
Yeah.
You know, and then they see, oh, David Hardin does that stuff. You know, let me ask him about it. And if anybody ever asks, if you ever, anybody whatsoever, my response is always going to be, yeah, come on out.
Right.
We got extra wetsuits. We got surfboards. I got climbing gear. We got everything. If you truly are interested, all are welcome.
And willing to do the work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
You know, because we'll sometimes have to get in the lake and, you know, I'll have to no surfboard and just kind of, you know, paddle with them and push them into the wave and get them comfortable, you know, like all those things. Yeah, we had another friend, Taylor Phelan, remember him?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Taylor came out one time and never came back because it was just too cold.
Yeah.
But he had a great time. And
Yeah.
I gave him all the credit in the world to actually like try it out.
Yeah.
Trent Miner was another one.
Yeah.
Years ago, we brought Trent out there, and you know, Trent grew up in California and came out one time and never came out again because it was a little too cold. So it's not
possible that would be my experience, but it's still neat.
But he
to try
still
it.
has that memory. He still has that experience, you know. And you know, it's not for everyone, but if you could find that Stoke,
Yeah.
I'm not addicted to the Stoke, but I need more Stoke in my life, right?
Yeah.
If I'm sitting in an office all day long, I'm being tortured.
What and how would you define Stoke as well?
Acting like a kid, having fun.
Yeah. It's
I was
great.
just at Disney a couple weeks ago with some friends and colleagues, and was never a Disney person, and went there and was able to get in the mindset of acting like a kid. Because we went to Hollywood Studios, and I was there when I was like 12 years old.
Yeah.
And a flood of memories came back, and I told one of my buddies who's a Disney person, and I was like, dude, I get it. I get it, right? So like I was able to get in that mindset and enjoy it, right? That's plenty.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to be doing something that adventurous or extreme. I prefer that. But as long as I could go out there and just feel like a kid again, as long as I could go out there and feel like I'm having fun, adventuring, the more and more I could do that.
I love that.
You know?
Does that mindset of kind of seeking to rekindle that kid feeling ever come in conflict with organizing and coaching and, you know, kind of being in a leadership role?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
When I ice climbed Starved Rock a couple weeks ago, that was not one of my trips. I got invited by some mutual friends that I've never climbed with before. And it was the first time I've ever ice climbed where I wasn't guiding the trip.
Okay.
And I got to sit back and let them set up the ropes and the anchors and let them do everything and climb as much as I want. And I was like, this is kind of nice.
Yeah. Oh, this is what I've been missing.
Yeah. Did it make me want to do that more? A little bit. I love hosting. I love guiding. I love bringing other people to it. But I do think I'm going to try to seek out more opportunities to where somebody else is leading and just experience and enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, you've seen it. It's been a long time, but you know, when we lived in the West Loop, when we're having a party, I'm always cooking and serving everything else. I enjoy that. You know, I had a really big birthday party here because I had a lot of family who've never seen the house because of COVID, and I recognized that. So my birthday 2 years ago, I had a ton of family come. And I was nonstop cooking and grilling and smoking meats and making cocktails and everything else. And I had a handful of people who were like, will you relax? Will you just enjoy your birthday? I'm like, I am enjoying my birthday. This is what I enjoy.
Cool.
But it is nice to be able to sit back and just let somebody else do it from time to time.
Yeah. I feel this a lot when I'm gathering people for any kind of experience, to whether it's we're taking a trip together or we're going to a concert together. And when I've gathered people, I feel that similar joy when I see people connecting, especially when I can invite people along who may not necessarily know each other, and then I see them connecting.
100%.
I just like sit back and just be a proud dad and you know, just watch. And that to me is enriching, sometimes even more so than participating in the activity directly myself.
You get it.
So I appreciate that a lot. And I resonate with you also saying, and I still need to be able to receive as well.
Yeah.
And to give and receive go hand in hand.
Yeah.
The more you receive, the more filled up you are to give back. And
yeah, it's a great point.
So.
And I'm starting to learn that I don't have that balance dialed in yet. for a long time, the balance has definitely been way more I am guiding and hosting and a little bit less here, but I'm starting to transition. And everything in my life, I'm always trying to learn balance. And I think that's the next piece of balance I'm trying to learn is, okay, well, how much can I actually just enjoy and kick back and relax and not feel it's a great analogy is a bonfire.
Okay.
We see a lot of memes. There's always that one kid is always, stoking bonfire and maintaining. That's me. All right.
I love to fidget with fire
right.
as well.
So you get it, right? And it's rare that even if it's somebody else's fire, there's times if I see something, I have to fiddle and make it better. And I'm learning to just be like, no, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Just relax. And so I'm still, we're always learning. And that's one thing I'm still trying to learn is that balance.
Yeah. We have a fire pit in our yard. And so when my wife and I will sit out there, she will sometimes say to me, why don't you just sit for a little? We don't need to keep rearranging the logs. They're actually good.
Yeah, right?
Just let them burn.
Yeah.
Like, but I want to burn things.
Yes.
I want to rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so balance. You are juggling a lot of things. You are an athlete and facilitator and trainer in many areas of sports and activity, and you're juggling multiple businesses and which are all happening in parallel. They're all active and thriving in the same time. First question before we get into any of that: what does rest look like for you in between all of this? And when are you resting? When do you sleep?
I'm a good sleeper. First off,
Good.
We act like old people. We're eating dinner at like 5:30 at night, and then we're in bed. If we're watching a movie and it ends at 8:45, we were like, let's just start our night, let the dogs out, and everything else. So I'm in bed by 9:30 at the latest, sleeping by 10 o'clock every night. So I definitely sleep is paramount. I've learned that over the years. If you're not optimizing sleep, everything is just going to fall to the wayside. There's that saying, like, you sleep when you die. I hate that saying.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't understand how important sleep is, especially with like optimizing your hormones, which affect everything, right? I do find the weekends where I sometimes just have to I'll look at Jess, I'm like, hey, let's just order out. Let's just relax and do nothing, and I find I have to do that every once in a while. Yeah. Just this past Saturday, I got a buddy, one of my really close buddies, he's in town from London. And he was living here, but he moved to London, and he's back just for a little bit. And, we're crossing over while he's in town and I'm in town. And Saturday during the day, I'm doing work, I'm finishing the basement, and I'm like, I really don't want to go out Saturday night. And we were just going for pizza. We weren't going out. Yeah. I'm like, I really don't want to do that. And all of a sudden I'm like, no, wait a minute. I don't see my buddy very often. He's somebody who shows up. I got to go show up, right? And so sometimes I have to fight that urge to just sit back and relax. Yeah. But I have to get my recharge. Yeah. I talk for a living. Yeah. I'm literally advising clients and everything that I do, I talk for a living.
Gotta stay sharp.
And there are times where I have friends who want to call me at 6 o'clock at night, 6:30 at night, and I have to apologize. I'm like, guys, I've been talking all day long. I love talking, but I need to find that rest, right? So I think I do a good job of peppering in rest when I need rest.
Love that.
And if it builds up, then I need to go take a trip. And you ask Jess every once in a while, it'll be like, hey, I'm gonna, do you mind if I go down to Florida, or go out to California or do something like that? She recognizes that sometimes I just need like a weekend to just blow off steam, and blowing off steam is surfing waves, so, or climbing rocks.
That's a fun flip of, I think for a lot of people, it's, the work and activity builds up. And so then what they really need is a weekend to rest. Yeah. And it sounds like you're really good at rest and you have great rhythms of rest. So you're more likely to have rest build up and you're like, I have energy. Yes. Need to burn it.
Yeah, that for sure. And I also want to recognize that, I don't like the term warrior weekend, right? Because then it shows that, okay, you're working your ass off during a week and then you got to blow off steam in the weekends, and that's also not healthy as well, right? So I still try to pepper in during the week if I can. I got the one wheel, and so if it's nice out, if I get an hour break, I'll go out and just skate around, things like that. Or I got to go pitch investors here in California on Wednesday, so I'm flying out tomorrow afternoon. I'll get there tomorrow night, pitch the investor Wednesday morning. If there's waves, me and my buddy are going to surf for a little bit, and then I'll go back to meetings, right? So I always make sure that every trip I take, if I could tack on another day, or if I could tack on a day of adventure to get my fill, right? So that way it's like, okay, I'm working hard, but I'm staying an extra day to go adventure.
Yeah.
So that's something I've really caked in. I learned that probably over the last like 5 years.
That speaks to me because I've made a lot of improvements to my health that I'm proud of in the last few years, but sleep is the last frontier of my health. I said that to my therapist, and he's like, I like the language of last frontier because it implies you think you're still going to get there. And
There you go.
I think that is
Nice.
true.
Very good.
So, yeah, it always just feels like there's not enough hours in the day to do it all. But
When you got kids,
it does change a lot.
I was like,
when
I
you
could
have
give you
teenage
some
kids.
tips and tricks, but that's not for the kids. That's more so like how to get in a
It
mindset.
changes things a lot.
Yeah, but I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah. So some of that changes, as kids get older. The physical demands of parenting go down a little, but then the emotional demands increase.
For sure.
So it's never true rest, but it is just a different container and different framework. But so Beck, you're working on so many things. Can you just give me a summary of some of the things you have in motion right now? The businesses that you're working on, the projects you're excited about.
Okay. Mainly, so I sold all my gyms a long time ago. I don't own any more gyms. I get asked all the time, but I don't want to deal with employees. It's too much to be able to do. So for the last 6 years, I've been full-time advising small business owners. I'm an exit advisor. So basically what I do is any business that's small businesses, mom and pop shop to 20, 25 million in revenue. What I do is I analyze the health of their business. How much of a well-oiled machine is their business? And then I'm able to go there and advise them and hold their hands to help them reach their goals, right? So if you're a $500,000 mom and pop shop and you want to grow to 1.5 mil, I give you that roadmap and I help you get there. If you are a $3 million marketing company and you want to sell your business, right? My specialty is to go there and point out, hey, your leadership styles are not that great, or your sales can improve, your marketing needs to improve. So I give them all that there, so that way when they go to sell, they get top dollar. Right, so that's what I've been doing. We launched Lendrose, which is a buy now, pay later for B2B service providers. We launched that in October. I'm a co-founder for that, and that was out of a major pain point in the small business world. I think I mentioned to you when we were chatting back and forth, I was a keynote speaker in Orlando in December, and my keynote speech was about finding your personal ethos, finding your why. And I've known for a long time, my why is helping others. Everything I've ever done, all the volunteering that I've done, all the businesses that I've ever done, I was helping others, right? And having the parties and cooking and everything else, right? I feel fulfilled when I'm helping others, and seeing a ton of business owners that just get stuck. So from the advising standpoint, I help business owners take it to the next level and put more money in their pockets and hire more people and improve the small business economy. With Lendrose, we recognize a lot of business owners get stuff because they can't afford the services that they need to take their business to the next level. So what we do is we give them the option to financing to go hire that digital marketing company, right, lead generating company, to take them to the next level. So it's a very, very, there's a lot in the buy now, pay later space, but they're mostly B2C. Like I bought my Peloton using Affirm, instead of paying, whatever it was up front, paying monthly payments. There's not many that focus on business, and there's not really that they focus on small business. Our goal is to help the small business owner, the mom and pop shops, the ones, that are trying to get to the next level. So those are my main two things. And then, I've got some interest in some other companies here and there, like with TACFIT, trying to help them expand and franchise out TACFIT gyms across the world. So there's a bunch of little things here and there, but those Lendrose and the advising is my main focus.
Okay. So you sold your gyms, but you mentioned the TACFIT. Are you still doing any personal training as well?
No, I teach 2 classes a week just for a friend's company. She's got an online fitness company, and just, she asked me to have somebody with experience on her roster to help her grow. And she's been doing that since COVID started. And so I just stay on there just to keep my foot in the door.
I love it.
It's still nice, for a 30-minute class on Wednesdays or a 45-minute class to still showcase my expertise. It's funny you mentioned that because I've got one client that's been trying to work. He's one of my advising clients, and he's trying to get back in shape. And so I've actually been giving him some nutrition advice and workout advice. And I'm like, ooh, I kind of miss this, right? So the entrepreneur brain comes off again, and I'm like, all right, can I mix in some sort of executive business and health coaching in one?
That's fun.
Right? Can I go ahead and target, let's say 40 plus executives who are trying to have a work-life balance. They want to adventure, but they're basically teach them how to be me. Can I teach that? And so here I am this year in 2025 trying to figure out, can I combine my two passions into one?
Well, it's really a holistic picture of leadership is by taking care of your health and it has a direct impact on your work and your performance. And,
100%.
The healthier you are in your body, the healthier you are in your mind. These things play well together.
And the momentum.
Yeah.
I notice that if I am what I call in flow, right? If I'm not on point, if I'm traveling and I eat like crap and I come back, right, then everything else falls, right? It's a domino effect, but it's also the same as reverse, right? So for example, when I get back from California on Friday, it's like, okay, summer's around the corner, time to eat healthy, right? And I'm going to take more meetings from my treadmill so I can walk all day instead of sitting. That's probably been the biggest killer for me is just sitting all day. And so I noticed that if I can add in one healthy thing, it domino effects in a positive way, right? So trying to figure that piece out.
And that feels more attainable to work in, the idea of if someone, reworking or changing your approach to your health might feel really overwhelming or daunting, but seeing what's one change? What's one change you can make?
So if I could teach others that, I think that's I literally was having this idea to where I've recognized, especially in my family, right, the generational, I don't want to say generational curse, but like generational patterns, to where when you look at your family, you look at your family history, especially for us, like poor Southside Chicagoans, and my family, nobody in my family is like, I don't think anybody's on welfare anymore, but we all grew up on that, right? And seeing how, my dad worked 2 full-time jobs just to escape from that, and I recognize the patterns of like, okay, here's what successful people do, but nobody's really talking about how they got there, the step by step. Like some of my books, I got Atomic Habits up here. That's an example of a book. Hey, go read that book, and it helps, but there's not this, hey, get away from your generational gap, and let me teach you what I've learned, how to it's a mindset piece. It's creating patterns and habits versus trying to do everything at once and crashing and burning.
Appreciate your use of the word flow as well. To me, that is part of what is so magic about play, is entering into a flow state. How often do you experience that flow state in your work and play where you are able to kind of just be totally engrossed in what you're doing?
With my advising, pretty regular, right? One thing that we advisors, especially with my colleagues, we really try to partner with the business owners. Like we are an owner in the business, right? So I really allow myself to engulf myself into the problems and the success that the clients have, right? So Jess, at the end of the day, sometime will ask like, hey, how was your day? And if I had a client that lost a big contract or if something like that happened, I'm like, kind of rough today, right? Or if a client, grew their business to the next level or and then I'm like, I'm on top of the world. So I experience flow state a lot when I'm in it with my clients. On a personal front, it ebbs and flows. And it ebbs and flows with my discipline.
Okay.
And the consistency, right? We all know discipline, but then a consistency piece, right? So if I can get back into that. So again, when I get back from California, it's like, okay, start doing this for breakfast and then everything else, falls in place. Get my workouts back in, because it's easy to just get busy. Especially when I'm redoing the basement. It's like, okay, I've got 3 hours before my next meeting. Should I go to the gym or should I go downstairs and try to finish this project I'm working on?
Tough choice.
Yeah, and so I've been doing the basement. So to try to pepper in some of those small things, and then I get in the flow. And then it's like, okay, my nutrition's on point. My sleep is on point. Work, everything just flows with each other. So, not that this is like, hey, let's have David Hardin give you some advice. But if a piece of advice I could give is if you notice your whole ecosystem, your whole world, work, relationships, family, daily life, health and nutrition, everything it involves, if one is falling off and you feel like, Sometimes you get stuck. Focus on another one that you're already doing and try to get more flow from there. And then the flow spills over here. Yeah. And for me, being a fitness guy my entire career, that's usually, I know if I'm feeling tired, if I'm feeling stressed, if I'm feeling the stress of my clients, you know, I know that, hey, if I just, you know, hey, let me get in my rowing machine for 30 minutes in the morning. And that sets me up, and then it flows into everything else. Yeah. So that's one piece of advice. Look at everything and try to get one thing better, and it'll spill over.
And there's tons of brain science behind that as well.
100%.
So seems evident that high performance is a value to you. It's something you exude, you seek out. You talked about discipline and the rhythms that you have of how you care for yourself and care for others. Who shaped those things in you? How did those things come to be? Did you have people who were mentors or leaders or nurturers in your life that helped bring some of those things out of you and teach you?
It's a good question. You know, first off, in the hard work and the discipline, my dad. You know, my dad never adventured, didn't have the fun. He's retired and he's just now starting to do some of that stuff. But he worked, like I said, 2 full-time jobs to get out of poverty, right? To escape the generational, let's call it a curse. Why not? You know, so like I definitely learned the hard work ethic from him, you know, and the thing I could say I learned from him was if you're going to do something, do it right the first time. Okay. Right. He was that guy to where, you know, I'm like, oh, I want to go to my baseball game. And like, oh, you got to finish your chores. And I go ahead and do something. And it was half-assed because I was trying to get it done quick. And then he would admit, nope, you go do it right. And I'd be late for my baseball game, right? So it took, you know, when you're a teenager, you never want to do that stuff. And then it took years to finally recognize, if you got to do something, do it right. Okay. Right. On the helping people, my dad definitely helped for sure, right? And I want to give him credit there, but also like the talents or the traits that I got from my mom. My mom was a definition of, she would give your shirt off her back. You know, single mom, she was struggled a lot. And, you know, every Thanksgiving meal, even if we didn't know if we were going to have Thanksgiving, because that's how broke she was at sometimes, right? It's how much she struggled. But she always made sure that, like, you know, the homeless guy down the block, we always had a plate for that guy, right? You know, I remember we had somebody staying in our house. It was one of my mom's like high school friend's daughters. My mom hasn't talked to this person in a long time, and she was struggling, and so my mom had a room. And like, yeah, sure, you could, you know, stay in the room in the apartment. So the definition, if you were to look at the definition of like helping others in the dictionary, should be a picture of my mom, right? So definitely from her. And then another story that I would love to share with you, and I think I mentioned this. We had, and I don't want to go into too much details. We had a family member over who was in college, and they were going on their own adventure. They were actually going to go camping up in Pictured Rocks over Thanksgiving, and the weather is pretty brutal. And so I was like, yeah, you could borrow my clothing and my gear, you know, all my Arc'teryx stuff. And so he brought one of his friends over, and his friend saw that I was an Arc'teryx athlete, and, you know, seeing all of my surfboards in the garage and all my gear. And he's looking, and the kid looked at me like I was the coolest guy he's ever met. And what hit me was, I remember being that kid when I was younger, and I got emotional afterwards because this hit me in the head. This hit me up top side of the head. I remember as a kid, I met some famous people. I met some really rich people. You know, I remember, you know, first time I saw a Lamborghini, I met this guy, and I was like 15 years old. I was like, wow, what a car. But I never looked at him like, I want to be you. But I do remember meeting, you know, people in their late 30s, 40s, and even 50s who were surfers and climbers and adventurers. And I remember specifically meeting some of these people as a kid, and I'm like, I want to be you. When I get older, I wanted that, right? I don't need a giant house. I would love to have a giant garage. I don't need a giant house, right? But I want to be able to take all the trips. You know, I want to be able to go do the things. And so I always aspired to be that. And I think subconsciously, I built that life, you know, somewhat consciously. And when that kid left, and I sat there for a moment, and I actually got a little teary-eyed, and I was like, oh my gosh, Jess, like, goal achieved. I am that guy. And that kid just reminded me that I am that guy, right? So like, that's when I say who's inspired me. Yeah, definitely, family members and friends here and there. But I think it's just taking and learning from others to be like, I want that in my life. I don't really want that. I want this. I want that. I want that. And yeah, that was a really cool reflection moment to say, because how many times in life can you actually say, having kids? I don't have kids.
Yeah.
Right. I would imagine when you had your kids, or even today when you go home and look and be like, I got a pretty good life, right? It's cool to like take a moment and look at the things that you actually have and be like, wow, awesome. And if you're somebody watching this and you don't have that, then my advice is go strive to go do that, right? Go figure out what do you want in life and go do it. But it's just really cool we're sitting here having this interview and I'm like, wow, this is an honor. This is really cool. But like, this is the life that I've built.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
I love that. It's so cool that you, even at, when you were young, yes, of course, a Lamborghini is cool, but it didn't inspire you in such a way of, I want to be wealthy or I want to have this particular material thing. But you were inspired by adventure and people who were getting out there and
living
doing
life
amazing things. And then, to be able to reach that point and say, and recognize, wow, I'm able to offer this to other people. I can invite others in and mentor others. And it's really, really cool pattern. You've done it all in so many ways, David. But what is some area of adventure or play that you haven't done yet that either you're intrigued by or maybe even intimidated by? Something you haven't done yet.
Those are two questions there.
Intrigue and intimidation are two different things. Maybe they go hand in hand, maybe they don't.
Yeah, the intrigued and the wanting to do more. I got a buddy who does a lot more dive trips, and so I'd love to get more into diving. I dive, but I'm not traveling the world to dive. So that's one piece.
And when you say diving, do you mean
scuba?
Scuba.
Yeah. I got another buddy who is trying to do the 7 summits. I don't know if I really need to do this. I don't know if I ever need to do Everest.
What are the 7 summits?
Mount Everest, Aconcagua down in South America. I think Rainier. Just the major peaks.
The biggest.
Yeah, the biggest peaks, right? The most adventurous, right?
Yeah.
I would love to do Everest Base Camp, but I don't think I have the necessity. Maybe if I do it once, all of a sudden I get addicted to it, right? So those are some more things I'd like to do. I've also recognized I've got too many hobbies. So
I can relate.
for example, we were down in Cabo on a work retreat, and they needed a 4th to go golfing. And believe it or not, I've never golfed.
Oh,
I've been to a driving range plenty of times.
Yeah.
Miniature golf I love,
yeah.
right? But I've never actually golfed. And they were like, let's wait till another time. You're going to slow us down because they're golfers.
Yeah.
And our CEO of Cultivate Advisors, the advising company I've been working for, he's like, well, you know what? I'll take you out and I'll show you the ropes. Go buy a cheap pair of golf clubs, and then we'll go out. And I recognize I'm not going to do that for 2 reasons. One, I got enough hobbies. Right? I got enough things to take up my time, and I'm happy with the things that I'm doing. And 2, I'm not going to buy cheap golf clubs because I like nice things.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm the type of guy. I'm like, I want the best golf clubs. Yeah. Even if I'm like doing it a little bit, So I do recognize that while there's other things I want to do, I have to limit with what I do.
Yeah.
Now, on the question of what intimidates me, I don't know. I don't know. Really.
Nothing?
I'm sure there is.
I mean, the fact that you listed climbing Everest as more in the intrigue category than intimidation category, I'm not sure what else there is left for you. Going to space, maybe?
Yeah, right. I mean, there's some activities there that would be fun, but I would never do. Like the flying wingsuit.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
That looks so cool, but apparently like 1 in 10 people die.
Oh, wow.
Like, no, I don't need to take a risk like that. Even with surfing, like I don't need to surf big waves. There's a bumper sticker that exists. It's called like I love small waves. It's like the older you get, the less risk you need to take. I don't know. Both my brothers got into like racing cars, and I think I'm a pretty damn good driver, and so like that sounds like a lot of fun. But again, another hobby, another thing to focus on, more expensive, or more expenses. But I don't know. I think I'm pretty happy with the hobbies I have.
It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a rich wealth of things that you can do for yourself and in community.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So based on all of that, you talked a little bit about that definition of Stoke earlier. And what did you say, again, kind of that kid feeling, right? That
Yeah, just feeling like a kid again, just
Yeah.
enjoying life as a kid.
Okay.
I guess that's the best way to put it, is
Enjoying
like
life as a kid.
enjoying life from the perspective of a child. You know, you're not worried about, and this is going to sound really, really, I don't know if it's going to sound arrogant or it's going to sound weird to people, but like, I don't really have anxiety.
Okay.
I don't really know what anxiety really feels like. And you know, don't get me wrong, I get nervous, you know, I got a keynote speech coming up, something like that. But like, I don't get in my head that way, you know, and we all have negative talk. I have negative talk. Absolutely. I get procrastination and perfectionism, you know, and I definitely am one to where I could start a project and it's, you know, I get this from my dad, you know, it's like trying to finish a project, but I do make sure I finish projects, you know, but there's always something new coming up that I like to do. But I think trying to enjoy life, you know, not to bring it up again, but the Disney trip really kind of connected. That's what it was.
Yeah.
All the adventure I do, all the fun that I try to do, and you know, and you're at Disney, and clearly it's designed to give the world's happiest place, right? And to be able to go in there and have that kid mindset, I think since coming back from Disney, I'm like, that's what it is. That's why I enjoy surfing and rock climbing and all the adventures, because you get to just have fun.
Yes.
The weight of the world is not on your shoulders, and while you're on a wave,
Yeah.
you are just Stoke.
Yeah.
You are just, this is the greatest thing. And in Hawaii, you know, surfing Puerto Rico is fantastic. I'm literally trying to buy a vacation home down there. We've been going down there for 14 years. Surfing California is great. Surfing Florida, surfing all over is great. But in Hawaii, there's a mountain, I'm on a wave, and there's a beautiful mountain with a waterfall, and I'm just, you're focusing on a wave, and all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
you know, that wonderment, you know,
Yeah.
that's what I'm chasing.
I love it. Cool. So yeah, I mean, that you basically have provided your definition of play there as well, your definition of Stoke. And that's a really cool framing of it, is play equals Stoke. But is there anything else you want to add? How do you define play beyond that?
I think it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
I think for me, that was my definition, but you know, for you, it might be something else. You know, for anybody else, it could be something. But whatever it is that just gets you to, I got a playlist on my Spotify called Happy, and there's songs that no matter what mood I'm in, if I play any of those songs, I get happy.
What's one song on the playlist?
Oh, geez. Speaking of my mom, the George Kranz Din Dada, it's an old breakdancing song.
Okay.
Like, that is probably, if anybody hears that song in my family, they think of me and my mom.
Cool.
You know, but I mean, I've got so many different songs on there. I've got "Come Sail Away" from Styx on there. And you hear that song and it just, you know,
Fills you up.
yeah. And there's a bunch of different genres and everything else there, right? And so I bring that up as an analogy, right? If you could find something in your life that makes you happy, that silences everything, because I understand most people have anxiety, right? And if you could find something that silences that anxiety, even if a little bit, that's the Stoke.
Cool.
That's getting on the way to the flow, right? So if you could get there and then do more of it, you're going to have a more fulfilled life.
Great. So David, thank you so much. I feel inspired. I feel just like, oh yes, I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's go surf. Come on.
Let's go surf. I love the way David is work hard, play hard, embodied. He's just the epitome of this in such a beautiful and genuine way. And I find everything he does, the way he brings his full self into his work and his play, really inspiring. And for all of you, you probably heard some things in there that you thought, wow, that's incredible, but I can't do extreme sports. I'm not doing all these, dangerous and exciting things. Like, well, let's tone it down a little. Wherever you're at on that, I hope you found some inspiration there to say, maybe that's how you feel. You are also welcome to say, I don't feel like I could do that now, but maybe it's a goal. Maybe it's something I could work towards. Whatever it is, there are ways to learn from the ways David engages his sports, his adventures, the excellence he brings into his work. I'm thinking about this a lot, and I also really appreciated the way David brings people along and has this posture of helping people. So much of play and work are built on connection. And for him, what I heard was, this is not just something he wants to engage for himself, and there is a time and a place to play on your own, of course. but his bent towards facilitating community and bringing people along really speaks to me. So I'm grateful for that, grateful for David, and we'll see. Maybe he will get me out there to try surfing one of these days after all. Thanks all for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. You can learn more about David and find a transcript of our conversation on our website, defineplay.com. You'll also find there a Spotify playlist of songs that make David feel playful. So check those out if you want to find some of his inspiration and catch some of his Stoke. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who might appreciate it. Share it with anyone. And please subscribe and follow if you're not already. Check us out on Spotify Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or right here on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us. Let's go get it, friends. Bye-bye.